Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slashfilm Daily for Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. On today's episode of the show, we're going to be talking about the latest film and TV news and answering a listener question in the mailbag. My name is Ben Pearson. I'm the senior writer at slashfilm.com, and I'm joined on today's episode by Slashfilm managing editor Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
And writer Chris Evangelista.
Hi.
All right, guys, let's jump into the news first. Chris, we learned yesterday some news about San Diego Comic-Con 2021. What did we learn?
We learned that it will once again be virtual like it was last year, and I'm pretty sure we all kind of guessed this would happen. But they made it official. It's going to be a 3-day event spanning July 23rd through the 25th, 2021, online, just like it was last year.
That's a smaller, that's like a downsizing, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, they said they reduced it to a 3-day event this time.
I think we talked about this, when Comic-Con 2020 was happening, the first Comic-Con at home, and we were sort of speculating into the future about whether or not this might happen again. And I think we probably talked about, how we would feel about that at the time. But since that's been, many months now, Chris, I know that you've covered Comic-Con in person before. How do you feel about the idea of I guess, a second year in a row of virtual Comic-Con?
It's for the best. There's, I mean, I don't love Comic-Con to begin with, so even if it was in person, I wouldn't be like, ooh, Comic-Con. But it's better to do it this way than risk super spreader events. But I do remember last year's virtual Comic-Con was kind of blah. The DC fandom was much better, surprisingly. So I'm hoping the organizers learned from the experience and will find a way to make this year's version a little more exciting. I guess it really all depends on who's going to be there, who wants to even bother with it and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like the people who do decide to show up, the studios and stuff, are they just going to be bringing, like projects that we've known about for years and years? Because like part of the fun of Comic-Con is like learning about new stuff and seeing, footage that you've never seen. But for a lot of these projects that have just been like bumped and bumped and bumped because of COVID, we've already seen multiple trailers for this stuff. So at a certain point, we're like getting into, that period that happens for every major blockbuster, like in the week before it comes out, when like, every day there's a new TV spot or something, where it's just more and more footage and you feel more and more like you've seen the entire thing without actually seeing the movie. So, I'm curious what's going to happen here. Jacob, what do you make of this?
What I make of it is that I don't. Every year I dread having to cover Comic-Con, but then I end up really enjoying myself and looking forward to doing it again for about 6 months. Then I spend 6 months dreading it. So there's a tinge of sadness to this, that I won't be able to go on the ground and cover it again. But I also think that canceling it or putting it online is the right choice. But I will say, after 2 years off at this point, I'm going to be very much ready to cover it again when it rolls around. So fingers crossed things get back together for 2022 at this rate. Jeez.
Yeah, it says in this official statement that the organizers released that they're happy to announce that San Diego Comic-Con is planning to present a 3-day in-person convention in San Diego in November, but there are no specific details about the capacity or how much that will cost or who's going to show up there. Jacob, I know that you you are especially fond of the city of San Diego. I know that you carve out time every year to just like go do some exploring and stuff like that. For this 3-day thing, is that something that you might be interested in? Like theoretically, things will be a little bit better in November than they will be this summer. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if things are better, I'll have my second vaccine, within a few weeks. So, but I also want to make sure I don't want to go somewhere where things will get worse or become worse. So if the site needs me there and things look safe in November, San Diego's great. I really, really miss taking 2 days off and San Diego early and seeing the sites. So Ben, don't tease me of this optimistic future.
Okay. Well, our next story is going to be pretty short because there's not much by way of hard concrete facts here, but we do know that there's been some casting news for Disney and Lucasfilm's or Disney Plus's and Lucasfilm's Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show. Indira Varma has been cast to join that series, and if you don't recognize that actress by name, you'll probably know her best for playing Elaria Sand on Game of Thrones. She was the sort of scheming and ruthless paramour to Oberyn Martell, and in the whole Dorne Sand Snakes subplot. She let loose this piercing scream during a very, very famous event in Game of Thrones history that is just like seared into my brain. And she's been in a bunch of other stuff too. She's appeared in Rome and Luther and Carnival Row and Torchwood and the one and only Ivan and many other things. We have no idea what character she's going to be playing. I just wanted to bring this up because I believe she's only the third official cast member announced for the show, aside from Ewan McGregor, who's coming back to play Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Hayden Christensen, who's coming back to play Darth Vader in this series. And like I said, there's no details about who she's going to be playing yet. We were talking right before we started recording and trying to figure out Obi-Wan Kenobi's romantic history in the comics and outside of the live action movies, basically. And there are some characters that he sort of has history with. I guess he had a love interest. I think her name is Satine Kryze. I have not seen Star Wars Rebels or Clone Wars, so I don't know the ins and outs of that relationship, but it seems like this character is not going to appear in the Obi-Wan Kenobi live action show on Disney Plus. So I guess we can cross that out as a possibility. But Varma is a really solid actress, so I'm excited to see her become, the latest Game of Thrones performer to, take a jump from Westeros into a galaxy far, far away. There are tons and tons of performers who have appeared in both, fictional universes there. So, I just wanted to mention that real quick. If anybody has any speculation or ideas about who she might be playing, I'd love to hear them. So if you want to email us, you can do that at peter@slashfilm.com. I'd love to know if you have any suggestions or anything, deep cuts from the Star Wars lore and mythos that I might not be aware of.
Ben, she's playing R2-D2, clearly. She's going to crawl into the metal tin can and operate it. I mean, she's a gorgeous woman. She's a talented actress. We're all acting like she's going to be a love interest or something, when clearly her talents are better used puppeteering R2-D2. I can't believe you didn't see this, Ben.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What a boneheaded move. Speaking of potentially boneheaded moves, there's a new reboot coming down the pike next year. Chris, tell us about that.
Silent Night, Deadly Night, the 1984 horror movie about a killer Santa Claus, is getting a remake for 2022. No one's really attached to it yet. There's no writer or anything like that, but we just know it's in the works.
So is this a dumb decision, Chris, or do you think this might actually be a smart thing?
This has potential. The original Silent Night, Deadly Night is not very good, and none of the sequels are very good either. It's more a film that's known because of its controversy. When it arrived in 1984, there were a lot of protests against it because all the marketing was, Santa Claus with an axe, and parents groups and all that stuff were outraged, and the movie ended up getting pulled from theaters after a week. But that kind of inadvertently helped the film out because it just built this reputation and it became a sort of cult favorite, and it spawned all these sequels. And there's really not a whole lot to the original movie. It's about a guy, when he's a kid, he watches his parents get killed by someone dressed as Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, and he grows up to be emotionally disturbed. And then one Christmas he snaps and he puts on a Santa Claus costume and he starts killing people. And that's literally it. There's really nothing more to the story. So you could potentially take that springboard and use it to create something clever or something fun. I always feel like you shouldn't remake a good movie. You should take a shitty movie that had an interesting concept and try and do something better with it. So I hope that's what happens here, but I guess it's a little too early to tell how it's going to all turn out.
I have heard of this movie, but I've never seen it, and I don't know anything about the controversy that you're just talking about. This is news to me. So I'm curious, Chris, do you know anything about have you drilled down into the details of what people were actually furious about at the time? Were they just it was Santa Claus is the guy that's on the Coke can. You're destroying the sanctity of this Christmas creation.
Yeah, it was literally that. It was literally because all the marketing. I mean, I'm sure you're aware. There's the famous poster where you see Santa's hand with an axe going down a chimney, and without really knowing what the movie was, everyone just locked onto that and were like, "Oh, this is bad for children to show Santa." Basically, the argument was people thought the movie was about the real Santa Claus killing people, and that's not, technically it's a guy dressed as Santa. It's not supposed to be the real Santa. So, but that was basically the controversy, and a lot of the controversy was also sort of hyped up by the people who made the movie because they knew it would be good for them, and it was. So,
I see. Jacob, have you seen Silent Night, Deadly Night? What do you think about this reboot?
I've seen the first two, and they're really bad. The second one especially. If you've ever seen the Garbage Day meme on YouTube, you've seen the only part of part two worth seeing. It's more interesting than good. I think the hype around it, or the controversy around it, is more interesting than the movie itself. So it's the exact kind of thing you should remake. Remake bad stuff and try to make it good. That's my 2 cents on this. I think anybody who thinks the original movies are actually good should probably see more movies. And this one will probably be better by default because not only is the original bad, it is badly made. Yeah. So, Killer Santa Claus, there's been a lot of them over the years. Just do another one. Just do a better one.
Okay. Sounds like you and Chris are on the same page there. All right. So our last news story involves the CEO of Disney talking a little bit about the future of, I guess, theatrical release windows. Jacob, Brad wrote an article about this. Can you summarize it for us?
Yeah, Bob Chapek, the CEO of Disney, spoke at a virtual investment conference, and he said the following. The consumer is probably more impatient than they've ever been before, particularly since now they've had the luxury of an entire year of getting titles at home, much when they want them. So I'm not sure it's going back, but we certainly don't want anything like, but we certainly don't want to do anything like cut off the legs of theatrical exhibition run. So he's pretty much saying that the genie's out of the bottle. People are really used to this new COVID world of things arriving either on VOD or streaming or shortly after a limited theatrical run. And Chapek himself is admitting that, we may have turned a corner here. And as Brad cited in the article, Universal was the first one to make drastic changes last year, cutting the theatrical window to 17 days. Warner Brothers sending their entire slate to HBO Max. Paramount just announced that Mission Impossible 7, Quiet Place 2, and Top Gun Maverick will be heading to Paramount Plus 45 days after theaters. And Disney's been flirting with this already. They have movies like Raya and the Last Dragon and Mulan being available for an extra fee on Disney Plus, or movies like Soul and Hamilton going right to Disney Plus. And Disney, is top of the pack right now. That they're the ones calling most of the shots in Hollywood and how people are reacting to all these big changes. And Disney's been kind of sitting on the sidelines. I think Chapek admitting that, this is can't put his toothpaste back in the tube is an admission that theaters, when they do open, it's going to be a very different experience. And I think the way we consume media, in the years ahead is permanently altered. Do you agree, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. I think you bring up a really good point in that Disney is the one who's sort of at the top of the pack. And, what they say, I feel like has, extra weight because of that sort of leadership position that they hold in the industry right now. I'm curious what you think about, when HBO Max and Warner Brothers made that announcement about the simultaneous releases in 2021. I think that was in December when that happened. And so now that we're, into March and we've got 2 months behind us of this experiment, and, we've had some time to sort of see how movies like Judas and the Black Messiah and the new Tom and Jerry film have rolled out and sort of been experienced by the public at large. Jacob, what do you think about the idea? I guess I'm asking for like an updated prediction from you about what we talked about before when this announcement first came out, which was like, we thought that that this was like a scenario that is going to continue forward beyond just the year 2021. With Chapek's comments here and what we've seen thus far, do you still think that's going to be the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see how things go back. I don't see how this past year doesn't change things permanently going forward. I don't see how Universal and Paramount and Warner Brothers and Disney can make these changes, look at the audience reaction, and realize that things have to go back the way they were. I mean, I don't know how much money putting the little things on HBO Max actually made Warner Bros. I don't know how that tipped the needle in terms of subscribers. but I have a gut feeling that more people watch Little Things on HBO Max than they would have in theaters. And that's surely the kind of, disruptive Netflix energy that everybody's been chasing, for 5, 6, 7 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't look, as Brad pointed out in his article, Disney made just over $11 billion at the box office in 2019 before COVID hit and changed everything. And there's no way Disney Plus, even with Premier Access titles, can replicate $11 billion in a year. So things are going to change. The question is, what balance do the studios strike to try to make sure that $11 billion still happens, but you're also paying for Disney Plus?
Yeah. Chris, I'm curious, do you have any thoughts about this, especially that last point from Jacob? Like, what kind of balance do you think, what do you think the landscape is going to look like, when we get into 2022 and hopefully, the worst of this pandemic is behind us and we're trying to like settle into the groove of a new normal? Do you think it is going to do you think there's going to be an industry standard in terms of these theatrical release windows, or do you think it's just going to be sort of this piecemeal thing where every studio is doing it differently?
I think it's going to be the piecemeal approach. I really, I can't say with any certainty how it's going to shake out, but I do agree that it's going to be impossible to like go back to the old ways whenever this is over, and who knows when that's going to be. So I really doubt. Some studios might want to just be like, all right, let's go back to exactly how we were doing this before, but I have real doubts that all of them are going to try that.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into the mailbag for our final segment today. Let's see. Leanne R. writes, hi, Slashfilm Daily Cast. I've enjoyed hearing your recommendations for cult classics, as well as your highlight on Black shows / creators. For an upcoming mailbag question, I was just listening to the mailbag episode for the Slashfilm Cast with David Chen, Devindra Hardawar, and Jeff Cannata, and they briefly discussed some two-hander films. Can you guys list or recommend any favorite two-handers? Thank you. I don't know if you guys have. I have not had a chance to listen to that Slashfilm Cast episode, so I apologize in advance if we're just covering the exact same ground here. But just to sort of level the playing field, make sure that we are all on the same page. Two-handers, as defined by Variety, is just a play or movie with two characters. I'm sure we'll have some little tweaks here and there that we can apply to this definition if we want to. But I'm just curious what you guys think. For me, the first thing that came to mind was Richard Linklater's Before trilogy, which is, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy as Jesse and Celine, this couple who, or these two people who sort of like meet and fall in love on a train and then wander around in the city of Vienna. And then the subsequent movies track the evolution of their relationship. And it's just a lot of the movies, the glory and magic of those movies is just these two people like walking around cities, just talking together. And there are some other characters that pop up here and there. There's a lengthy meal sequence. I think it's like a lunch sequence in Greece in the third film that comes to mind. But for the most part, like I said, the sort of central focus of the film is these two characters. I feel like that trilogy sort of qualifies in this two-hander category. Chris, do you have anything that comes to mind?
I wrote down The Lighthouse. I feel like that's a very good example of this. The recent Robert Eggers, Willem Dafoe, Robert Pattinson movie where they're in a lighthouse and they go crazy and they drink a lot. And it's great. It's a great movie.
I don't know, Chris, that seagull, I feel like that counts as a third character.
Well, to be fair, I think two-handers doesn't necessarily mean there are only two characters. I think it means there are two characters who are equally important.
Okay.
It's not just like there's not just a main character and a bunch of supporting characters. There's just like two main characters, and that's. I know you were kidding, Ben. I'm not trying to be like, no, Ben, actually, but I do think in my defense that's how I would define it, two-handed.
Yeah, that seagull definitely has some presence, so I feel like he counts. Okay, Jacob, what about you?
Yeah, I got a few actual two-handers and one that I'm cheating on. First two-hander, Gravity, the Alfonso Cuarón movie that stars Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, but mostly Sandra Bullock, floating through space, survives on two characters and a lot of special effects. And I love that. If you watch the making of that movie, it's literally those two actors like suspended in front of screens. Like it's almost experimental theater before it becomes a major blockbuster movie.
Mhm.
And I do think the movie works because of those two and the dynamic. So Gravity is a good expensive example of that. A science fiction movie, not as big or as grand, but equally powerful. Moon, the Duncan Jones movie that stars Sam Rockwell and Sam Rockwell. A man working on the moon and his clone. Really, really terrific. And I guess you could say there's a third character who's a robot, but it's mostly Sam Rockwell and Sam Rockwell. And I continue to be kind of amazed by how the movie pulls off a man interacting with himself for, a feature-length movie. Antichrist, a movie I have a hard time recommending to everybody because it's a Lars von Trier movie, which means it's intense and upsetting and troublesome in a lot of ways. But Willem Dafoe, apparently the master of these two-handers, and Charlotte Gainsborough are both terrific in it, and it's just this nightmarish make a double feature with Lighthouse in terms of movies about bad roommates, people you do not want to be stuck in an isolated place with. Antichrist and Lighthouse are I'll ask Chris, which place would you rather be stuck in, the Lighthouse from Lighthouse or the house from Antichrist?
I guess the Lighthouse, because the Lighthouse has alcohol. That's the only thing I can think of between the two of them. I mean, I love Charlotte Gainsbourg, but I don't want her to mutilate me. So I guess I'd have to go with the Lighthouse.
And one more, I'm cheating on this one because it's more of a one-hander with various guest stars. But this is Locke, the Stephen Knight film from 2013, starring Tom Hardy. My favorite Tom Hardy performance, where Tom Hardy is alone in a car for the entire movie, taking phone calls with people who you never see, you only hear them. And why he's driving and where he's driving is spoilers, but it is Tom Hardy doing great accent, just riveting, bouncing on people's voices for like 90 minutes. Am I cheating by putting Locke here as a two-hander when it's more of a one-hander, guys?
No, I'm glad that you mentioned this because that just inspired me to remember, that I feel like this kind of counts because there are other movies that are like primarily one-handers but have a character interacting with somebody else, either like on the phone, like in Locke, or I'm thinking also of Buried, the Ryan Reynolds movie where he's in a coffin, talking on the phone with somebody, and then there could be. This is what I was talking about in terms of like stretching the definition a little bit. I think you're fitting in right in that sweet spot, Jacob. There's also like the idea of a primarily one character interacting with somebody in like flashbacks or memories or something, and like 127 hours, I think would be a good example of that. And then maybe like interacting with a quote unquote character, like not even a human, but like maybe a volleyball, for example, like Castaway. I feel like kind of the majority of Castaway, that one's probably stretching a little bit too far because Helen Hunt's in it and there are other characters in the sort of like bookend portions of the movie. But for like a majority of the film is just Tom Hanks and a volleyball. So Chris, did you have any thoughts about like the strictness of the definition there? Do you think about like movies with primarily one person talking on the phone or something like that? Did those count as two-handers?
I want everyone to be happy. So whatever you want the definition of two-hander to be, listeners, that's what it is. Whatever makes you happy at home, that's what I want.
Oh, I just thought about another one. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I still have two TV episodes where this applies very, very well. Breaking Bad's Fly, or it's just Walter and Jesse hunting for a fly in the meth lab for the entire episode. And I can't remember, A Blade of Grass from season 3 of Penny Dreadful, which I just finished on my rewatch, which is just Eva Green's character and her orderly in a flashback in a mental hospital. The entire episode is those two alone in her cell, although occasionally her the other actor plays Satan as well because he's possessed by Satan at one point. So has 3 characters but 2 actors. So
Wow.
Take from that what you will.
Oh my God, I really need to make some time for Penny Dreadful, it sounds like. I was just going to say that I was thinking about one more as we were talking. Does Misery count? The Kathy Bates, James Caan, Steve King?
I would say it does. There are occasional other characters who pop up in Misery, but it's really James Caan and Kathy Bates for, I would say, like 98% of the film. So I would say
the book is definitely a two-hander because those characters who were added for the movie aren't even in the book or are in the book for about a page before they die.
What about Gerald's Game? Is that sort of the same kind of thing, or is that like, are there too many?
There's too many additional characters.
Supporting, okay.
There's like a bunch of flashbacks with her family, and there's There's like a serial killer called the Moonlight Man. There's a bunch of people in the story. So.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that one. All right. Yeah, I think hopefully that's a decent starting point or I guess addendum to the Slashfilm Cast episode. And I hope we didn't cover too much of the same territory there. But yeah, that's what we got for you. So hopefully you enjoyed that, Leanne. And yes, anybody else, if you have any topics, mailbag questions, or yeah, like prompts or anything like that, feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, and concerns, and those prompts to peter@slashfilm.com. Make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. You can find more about all of the stories that we mentioned on today's show at slashfilm.com and linked inside the show notes of this episode. Slashfilm Daily is published every weekday, bringing the most exciting news from the world of movies and TV, as well as deeper dives into the great features you can find on the site. You can subscribe to the show on Apple, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Don't forget to rate and review the show on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.